Imagine you're slicing an onion in your kitchen tonight. The knife slips for just a fraction of a second, leaving a tiny cut on your finger. You rinse it under clean water, place a bandage over it, and forget it ever happened. Now imagine that exact same cut 30,000 years ago. That tiny scratch could have been the first day of the last week of your life. Yet the reason might not be what you've always been told. We've all heard that prehistoric humans lived only about 30 years. But what if that famous number has been misleading us all along? The answer begins with a number that has fooled millions of people: average life expectancy. It sounds simple, but it hides one of history's greatest statistical illusions. Imagine a small prehistoric tribe where 10 children are born. 5 tragically die before reaching the age of 5, while the other 5 survive, grow into skilled hunters and gatherers, and eventually reach their 70s. The average lifespan of the entire group would be only around 36 years. Yet here's the astonishing part: almost no one actually dies at 36. That famous number doesn't describe an individual life. It describes the devastating impact of childhood mortality on an entire population. The average was dragged down by countless children who never had the chance to grow old, creating the false impression that adults simply collapsed from old age in their 30s. If you're enjoying uncovering myths like this through real archaeological discoveries and scientific evidence, consider subscribing to the channel. Every week, we'll challenge another popular belief about our ancient ancestors. And the truth is almost always far more fascinating than the myth. But if adults weren't dying of old age at 30, what was really killing them? If prehistoric humans could often live into their 70s, then one question changes everything. What was filling so many early graves? Most people imagine dramatic deaths. A hunter torn apart by a saber-toothed cat, crushed beneath a mammoth, or lost in the freezing wilderness. Hollywood certainly loves that version of history. But archaeological evidence and anthropological research paint a very different picture. The deadliest predators weren't lions, wolves, or bears. They were bacteria. A tiny infected cut, a cracked tooth, a splinter buried beneath the skin. Long before antibiotics, even the smallest wound could become a slow, agonizing death sentence. Infection spread silently through the bloodstream, causing overwhelming fever, unbearable pain, and, eventually, death. Across many prehistoric and pre-industrial societies, infectious diseases claimed far more lives than large predators ever did. But here's a question that divides historians and even surprises many scientists. Have movies, documentaries, and even school textbooks exaggerated the danger of prehistoric predators while completely overlooking the microscopic enemies that actually shaped human history? Let us know what you think in the comments before we reveal the evidence. The answer may completely change the way you imagine life in the Stone Age. For two groups of people, this invisible enemy was especially ruthless: mothers and young children. In the prehistoric world, every birth was a gamble with death. There were no sterile hospitals, no emergency surgery, and no antibiotics waiting to stop an infection. A single difficult labor or postpartum fever could claim a mother's life within days. For women who gave birth 5, 6, or even 8 times, the risk accumulated throughout their lives. Children faced even harsher odds. Many never survived their first year. Contaminated water, pneumonia, diarrhea, and countless infectious diseases swept through communities long before a child's immune system had fully developed. Entire generations disappeared before reaching adulthood, quietly pulling the average life expectancy lower and lower. If this surprising fact changes the way you think about prehistoric life, take a second to leave a like. It helps more people discover that history is often far more complex and far more fascinating than the myths we've all grown up believing. But this raises an even bigger mystery. If so many people died young, why did evolution allow humans to live decades beyond their reproductive years? That answer may reveal one of the greatest survival advantages our species has ever developed. At first glance, it seems like a contradiction. If so many children died before adulthood, why would evolution invest precious energy in allowing humans to live another 30 or 40 years after they had finished having children? From a purely biological perspective, it doesn't seem to make sense. Unless those extra decades were never meant for reproduction, they were meant for survival. Anthropologists call this the grandmother hypothesis. In hunter-gatherer societies, older adults became something even more valuable than hunters. They became living libraries. They knew where water could still be found during droughts. They recognized poisonous plants from edible ones. They remembered animal migration routes, hidden shelters, and the lessons learned from disasters decades earlier. Modern studies of traditional hunter-gatherer communities suggest that the presence of grandparents can significantly improve a child's chances of survival. In a world without books, maps, or the internet, knowledge existed only inside human minds. The oldest members of the tribe weren't a burden. They were the tribe's greatest survival technology. And that realization completely changes the way we should picture prehistoric humanity. The real miracle of modern medicine isn't that it dramatically extended the maximum human lifespan. It's that it made reaching old age normal. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors already possessed the biological potential to live into their 70s. What they lacked was protection from the countless invisible dangers surrounding them every single day. Clean drinking water, vaccines, antibiotics, antiseptics, and modern sanitation didn't rewrite our DNA. They simply removed many of the obstacles that prevented people from ever growing old. In other words, humanity didn't raise the ceiling. We raised the floor. Before we continue, we'd love to ask you something a little different. How are you doing today? Wherever you're watching from, we hope you're healthy, safe, and enjoying this journey into our shared past. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and how your day has been. It's always fascinating to see how this community spans every corner of the world. And if today's story has made you appreciate something as ordinary as clean water or a simple bandage a little more, you're already seeing history through a completely different lens. Because one tiny scratch was once enough to change an entire family's future forever. The next time someone tells you that prehistoric humans only lived to be 30, you'll know the truth is far more complicated and far more inspiring. Our ancestors weren't a species that aged twice as fast as we do today. They were people who faced extraordinary risks long before growing old. Those who survived childhood, disease, and injury often lived long enough to become grandparents, storytellers, teachers, and the living memory of their communities. Perhaps the greatest achievement of modern civilization isn't adding decades to human life. It's giving millions of people the chance to actually reach the age our species was capable of all along. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story behind one of history's biggest myths, we'd love to ask for one small favor. Our channel is working toward an exciting milestone of 1000 subscribers, and your subscription would genuinely help us get there. Every new subscriber allows us to create more science-based documentaries that separate historical fact from popular fiction. So if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the perfect time to join us and become part of our growing community of curious minds. And tell us in the comments, what common myth about ancient humans would you like us to investigate next? Your suggestion might become our next documentary. Until next time, stay curious, because history is always more fascinating than the legends.